This is a KGM Actyon, and if you're not sure what one of those is, then not to worry. Neither did the majority of people that came and spoke to me about this car this week. It's been gaining a lot of attention and everyone's been asking the same questions. What is it and where has it come from? Hi guys, my name's Tish and welcome back to my channel Auto Social UK. In today's video, we're going to be answering those questions. What is the KGM Actyon? Where has it come from? Where's it positioned within the market? And is it worth considering over some of the mainstream rivals? So if you want to find out everything there is to know about the new KGM Actyon, then please keep watching. And if you like new car reviews and car content, well, you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So why don't we start with what is it? So this is the KGM Actyon, or you can pretty much pronounce it any way you wish. It's spelt Actyon. Brand are saying to call it the Actyon, and that makes me happy because it's an easier word to say. So that's what I'm going to be calling it in today's video, but call it whatever you wish. And this is a mid-sized SUV, and it's to compare to things like the Kia Sportage. And the brands say that spec for spec, that this is actually better value for money than the Kia Sportage. But we know it's not all about spec. There's also other things to consider as well, and with only one engine option, that could be where this car misses out. But we're going to dive all into that a bit later on. But why don't we skip to the next question? So who is KGM and where have they come from? Well, if I mention the brand SsangYong, that might give you a better idea of where the brand has come from.
KGM Motors, formerly known as SsangYong, is an established South Korean automotive manufacturer under the KG Mobility Corporation, a subsidiary of KG Group. With over 70 years of history, the company is recognised for producing robust vehicles ideal for families and adventure seekers alike. The transition to KGM Motors finalised after KG Group's acquisition in November 2022. This marked a significant rebranding aimed at revitalising the brand, whilst preserving its core values of durability and reliability. The plant near Seoul serves as the main production hub of KGM's popular models. The acquisition has brought renewed investment and resources, enabling KGM Motors to streamline operations, enhance technology and expand its market presence, particularly in the UK, as it continues to innovate while delivering dependable vehicles.
You definitely don't have to squint too hard to see where they've drawn inspiration from when it comes to the Actyon. It very much looks like a Range Rover, doesn't it? It looks like a Range Rover Sport and a Range Rover Evoque came together to create the Actyon. Of course, it's not quite pulling it off like Range Rover does, but then it's also not as expensive as a Range Rover either. I especially think that this bar through to the spoiler at the back, that very much looks like a Range Rover, especially with the contrasting black and also the chrome elements. But I think personally it's a very good looking car. I was undecided when I first spent time with it, but so many people this week have said to me how much they like the design, and it's really started to grow on me. I just think they've overdone it in places, which I'll talk about in a moment. But first of all, let's talk about the things I really do like. I do like the shape. Because you have that square shape, it gives you loads of practicality. There's loads of space in the back and in the boot. The boot is a real highlight on this car, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But let's go back to styling. You've got these square wheel arches and they're body coloured as well. Everything is gloss, which I really like, and the wheels. There's actually only one specification of KGM Actyon available, and it's a very high specification. All get 20-inch alloy wheels included, and they're in this pretty snazzy design. They look really smart, maybe a little bit busy for some people, but personally I think it really suits the design of the rest of the car. But what's really impressive about them is the tyres. So they've chose to wrap them in Michelin Primacy Tour tyres, and that's going to help with efficiency and ride quality, which is definitely something which I'm going to look at when I drive it, because ultimately 20-inch wheels are quite large and can sometimes lead to a brittle drive. So we'll see if those tyres have helped smooth out some of it. It is a shame that there isn't any other specifications available, because actually 19-inch tyres would probably include an even smoother drive, and it would have been nice to just have the option. Plus, possibly would have been a little bit cheaper as well. I also really like the lighting signatures. So you've got these slim daytime running lights which connect together with this front light bar. That feels very, very nice. It's clear that they wanted this car to be instantly recognisable, especially in the dark, and I think they've done a really good job with that. Things I don't like so much. I don't like the bonnet decoration. So you've got this scoop at the top here. I don't mind this too much. It doesn't actually serve any purpose. It is literally just an add-on. And then you've got these handles on the side. Here is where I don't particularly like what they've done. And I do think it's just going a little bit OTT. They didn't need to add this. I don't think it really helps with the design. And it does just make it look a little bit like it's got a body kit on it. What's for sure is the styling has done a really good job of making quite a large vehicle look sleek. So this top quarter panel here, that's helping with that. It gives it a lower roofline appearance whilst actually being quite accommodatingly large. And talking about that, let's move on to boot space, because this is where this car is really impressive. Inside this boot, you get a whopping 668 litres. That is quite a lot better than the majority of the competition, even cars like the Kia Sportage. This is the boot that I was really hoping for when I test drove the JQ J7, and the KGM Actyon kind of embarrasses that car when it comes to boot space. It's also super practical, so it's really wide in its opening. As you can see, it's nice and low down as well, so you haven't got to lift items too high to get into them. People with dogs will probably get on really well with this boot because it's low, but also you have a retractable parcel shelf as well, so you don't even have to take the parcel shelf out when you're popping dogs into the boot. There is some negatives. It hasn't got as many amenities as some of its rivals inside here. So I'm looking around and I can see 12-volt charging, and I can see a hook and some storage, but there's not loads and loads of different gadgets inside of the boot, but I really don't think that'll be an issue. For families, this will be hugely practical, and I think it's a real highlight. From the exterior, the Actyon looks like a sporty SUV that might all be for show, but actually, as you delve into the interior, you realise there is a ton of passenger space. Of course, we've already highlighted that huge boot, but inside the back, it's still extremely capable. I have got a ton of room. As you can see, it also has quite a reclined position. Now, there's no sliding rear bench, which is a little bit of a shame. With such a big boot, you could have had a sliding rear bench, which could have given even more space for the rear seat passengers. But even without it, I've got loads of legroom, and I've also got plenty of headroom as well. In terms of amenities, it's also very good. You get a lot fitted as standard. On the backs of these seats, as you can see, you've got your standard map pockets, but you also have somewhere separate to pop your mobile phone. And I also like the way that this has kind of used different materials. It feels quite premium. In the centre, you've got ventilation. You haven't got tri-zone climate control, which is a little bit of a shame, but neither has a lot of its rivals. You've also got little storage sections, and you'll find 2 more fast USB-C chargers. You also get child blinds fitted to this car, heated rear seats, which is really, really nice. Quite a lot of storage inside the doors, 2 ISOFIX fitments on either side, and you also have a pull-down armrest with a couple of cup holders. No through loading, which once again is a little bit of a shame. And because this is a petrol car, you have got a tiny bit of a load tunnel. So if I pop my feet here, it's a little bit compromised when it comes to legroom. It would have been nice if it was a flat floor, but that's the benefit of EVs. But actually, in terms of petrol cars, it's pretty minimal. So I really don't think that is too much of an issue. This is somewhere where this car has seriously impressed me. Right, I think it's about time that we spoke about price. It's a little bit earlier than I normally would in one of my videos, but I think it's important for the positioning of the KGM Actyon. How much is it going to cost you? Well, a little bit more than I was expecting. I was seeing this car positioned around the £30,000 mark, especially with it being only available in a petrol engine. However, this actually costs just over £38,500. They back this up by saying, like for like, when you consider everything you get included, which is a lot, I'm not disputing that, it's about £2,000 less than the equivalent Kia Sportage. But for me, with such a new brand, which is a little bit of a risk, that's a lot of money to part with. But we haven't seen the best thing about this car yet, and that is the interior and the level of equipment we get. So can it still redeem itself and be worth the price tag? Let's find out. Inside of here is certainly where that Korean design shines through. It is a really luxurious cabin. I like it a lot. The materials used, they're not perfect. You will find plastics surrounding the cabin, but they've used a lot of mix of materials which have brightened things up. They're not just your usual imitation leather and then that's done. They've really thought about the interior of this cabin and tried to use a mix of materials. So you have this wood effect across the dash, which is really nicely lit up by this piece of ambient lighting. So this runs all along the centre and it also runs onto the doors as well. And the lighting on the doors, that links together with the grille design, with the light up grille. So I like that cohesiveness. Then you'll find leather atop the dashboard with some sporty red stitching, and you'll also find some carbon as well. So you've got carbon around the centre, and then just within the air vents you've got a little bit of gloss black as well, and some chrome that runs along the centre, once again matching together with the chrome on the exterior. It really is a nice combination of materials. A tiny bit of gloss black just surrounding this centre console, but actually you don't have to touch that, so it's not going to get sticky fingerprints on it. There's a little bit of less favourable plastic used on this centre console lower down, but it is lower down, so once again you're not going to come in contact with it, so it's no issue whatsoever. I really like the setup of this centre console, so it's almost floating above the storage section, of which you can fit a small handbag in there and other items, which is handy. You've got two USB-C charge ports, and these are fast chargers as well. Really, really handy, especially if, like me, you have a job where your phone needs to be charged all of the time. I've sat here for 10 minutes and I've managed to charge my phone up to about 30% from nearly zero, so super quick. You've also got some 12-volt charging as well if you want to use any dash cams or things like that. You also have a bit more of that carbon that was across the dashboard on this centre console as well. And here's something which I really wasn't expecting. It gets a crystal gear selector. I actually put a photo up of this on my Instagram, and so many people just could not guess what this car was. Of course, we think of crystal gear selector and often you think of DS or perhaps you think of Volvo, but because of the setup, a lot of people thought DS because this actually looks very Stellantis. But other than Stellantis, to me, there is a lot of inspiration within this cabin from Hyundai. Now, I did search it up, and despite both brands being Korean, there isn't any link between Hyundai and KGM or KG. And that's surprising because there's a lot of elements like this steering wheel. You'll find the buttons, but also primarily these selections on the left and right, these buttons here, that feels very Hyundai. These screens, they also feel very Hyundai. And once more, there's some buttons on the passenger seat to be able to control the seat from the rear. These are very Hyundai as well. So there's definitely a little bit of a conversation that's been had there. These seats are wonderful. Really, these are a highlight inside this cabin. You have got some very high quality Nappa leather, and these are actually quite hard, but in a good way. You know they're going to wear. Perforated in the centre because these are both heated and cooled as standard, and then you've got Alcantara up the top, which is diamond stitched. Feels super sporty, and then you've got the contrast red leather, and you also have a set of red seat belts as well, and these are kind of like a dark burgundy red, which feel a lot high quality than perhaps that kind of really bright orangey red that they sometimes use within cars. I'm liking a lot about this cabin. In fact, it's difficult to find things that I don't like. If I was going to mention something I don't like, it would simply be the fact that there's not enough buttons. So all of the climate control functions are done within the touchscreen, and as we know, that can be a little bit irritating if you want to do things quickly. But you do have shortcuts down the middle here to be able to select different things when you're driving, although they're more towards the passenger, which is a shame. So you have to stretch across if you want to get to your climate control functions quickly. But I haven't found it to be too much of an issue. And you also have this button on the steering wheel, and that can configure shortcuts as well. So at the moment, if you press the star, that's set up for your climate control. But say you wanted to change it to your Apple CarPlay, you could press that button and it would take you straight to the Apple CarPlay. But I want to go back to this steering wheel because once again, that's one of my favourite things in the cabin. I think it has to be the seats, then the steering wheel. So it's leather wrapped. You've got some perforated leather. You've got some red stitching on here, which matches with those seat belts. So in that nice dark burgundy red. but it's hexagonal in shape and it's also really big. And I found this to be so nice to use when driving. And what's brilliant is you've got great visibility through the wheel. Because it's at that hexagon shape, you can actually see everything straight through this steering wheel, which is really, really handy. The one thing that I don't like is the paddles which are mounted behind the steering wheel feel really far away. You can access them just behind here, but it seems a shame that these parts are towards the back of the wheel and they're a little bit hard to get to. But I really am just splitting hairs because actually it's such a nice cabin and it's kind of impossible to find things that I don't like about it. Sure, the quality could be even higher, but then you would be paying an even higher price. Overall, it's just an excellent place to spend time. Right, I think it's about time we got out on the road and we found out how it drove. Looking at the shape, the size, the price tag and the fact that this is fitted with a tow bar, you may have had your fingers crossed for an all-wheel drive action, but unfortunately it's only available in a front-wheel drive setup, so it's not going to be as capable as some of its rivals which are fitted with four-wheel drive. But let's face it, in this class of car, these SUVs, they don't tend to come with four-wheel drive options anymore, and when they do, no one buys them. So it makes sense that they've gone for two-wheel drive. If you need something which can off-road, then you're going to want to look at something which is a bit more rugged. It's also only fitted with a petrol engine setup. So similar to the configurations, there's only one engine and also it's only automatic, and there's no electrification, so it's not available in a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, which personally to me is a shame. So the engine setup is a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol, and it gets 161 brake horsepower paired together with 200 pound-feet of torque, so it's not the most powerful, and that allows a 0 to 62 sprint in around, well, just under 11 seconds. So it's not the most powerful. You do really miss that hybrid element as well because it doesn't have any instant torque from any electric motors. So when you first pull off, if I slow right down, when you're at lower speeds and you put your foot down, there's a real delay and then quite a lot of engine noise whilst it picks up. With a hybrid car, you would have got a little bit of instant torque from the electric motor and then the engine would have kicked in. Of course, there is a trade-off, however, and that trade-off is that this car, when you get up to the higher speeds, like on motorways, it then becomes a lot more settled than perhaps a hybrid engine, and then it's a bit nicer to drive. So if you're doing those longer journeys, then this could be a good option. However, because it is petrol only, it's not particularly economical either, and this is a fairly large heavy car, so a 1.5 litre petrol engine pulling this car is not great, and that means that your mile per gallon that you'll be getting sits around, well, KGM claim that it's 33.1 miles per gallon. That's the official WLTP cycle. Me personally, I've been getting between 29 and 30 miles per gallon. And other than then, when I just stand my foot on the accelerator, I drive very economically. In fact, I pride myself on it. So you're going to be seeing around 30 miles per gallon in this car, no matter how you drive it. And if you drive it hard, you're probably going to be seeing around 25. So that is a little bit of a shame. And it may be just undercutting its rivals in price when you compare it spec for spec, but I think when you then account for how much more money you'll be using in petrol, they kind of tend to balance each other out. But when it comes to cars which are not particularly economical, usually it means that they're engaging to drive. So is that the case here? Well, I have to say, I have been pleasantly surprised. This is a new brand to me. I understand it's not a new brand to some other people, but to me personally, I hadn't experienced KGM cars, and I will be completely honest, as I have done previously in this video, I thought this was going to be a Chinese product. So I was expecting it to be sloppy in the way that it drove with not particularly nice steering. This is actually very different. This has a really nice, good weight to the steering. I also love this big steering wheel as well. It really does make for quite a nice car to drive. It's also reasonably settled as well. It covers bumps in the road pretty well. If you do have some really rough surfaces, of course it will jiggle round it, but there's not many cars that wouldn't. It's not perfect, however. If you do try to chuck it around too much, it loses a little bit of its composure and you can feel the weight of the vehicle. That's probably down to the engine performance. So sometimes it feels quite heavy when you are taking those corners. But overall, I've actually been really pleasantly surprised, and it's quite a nice car to drive, even on those longer journeys. These seats are really nice, so it's definitely comfortable, even when you've been spending a lot of time in the car. So I would probably give it around an 8 out of 10 when it comes to driving experience, which is possibly a lot higher than I would have been expecting. If you're somebody who doesn't mind taking chances and you want something that your neighbours definitely won't have, then the KGM Actyon could be a great option. Sure, it's a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow when you realise that it's £38,500. In my mind, if this car was £28,500, I would be recommending it to everyone I know. But with it being £10,000 more than perhaps where I first saw it positioned, it becomes a little bit more tricky. Sure, the equipment on offer is fantastic, and I'm really starting to like the styling inside and out, but you can't help but feel like the backup from a dealer could be gone in the future, and not to mention the fact that possibly in a couple of years this will be worth less than half of what it is right now. So perhaps it could be a really good second-hand option. I'm very torn with how I feel about this vehicle. There's a lot of positives, but also a few negatives as well. But let me know all of your thoughts and feelings. What do you think of the KGM Actyon? Pop them all down below. I really hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. Until next time, guys. See you later.